Hello, USC fans. Connor Morrissette, Chris Trevino of USCFootball.com. It's time for instant analysis after the Trojans' fourth practice of fall camp. Chris, let's start with some housekeeping items. A couple injuries. Lincoln Riley mentioned Rajon Davis, Romello Height, both not here today. Takeaways from just some early injuries in camp.
Yeah, remember, we cannot talk fully about the injuries, but if Lincoln Riley does comment on these players, we can't talk about it. The first one being Rajon, the linebacker, did seem to have a brace on his hand, and Lincoln Riley did mention that he had a hand injury, and he didn't seem concerned, though, that was going to keep him out for a very long time. So they're excited to get him back. You know, he's had a really good spring, progressed in the offseason, so they're excited to get him back in the fold at some point. Romello Height was not at practice today. Lincoln Riley said along the same lines, kind of guys getting nicked up and stuff. He said he was really explosive the first couple of days of practice when they had him out there, but wanted to give him a little bit of time off. Obviously, he's coming off that shoulder injury, and his health is something that they need to take into question after having that season-ending surgery last year.
Last practice, Coach Riley mentioned Bear Alexander was a little banged up. During the media viewing period, I was able to see him in action, and he looked really violent, really aggressive hitting those sleds. I felt bad for those inanimate sleds because, man, was he beaten up on those. So he looks healthy. Overall, Ryan asked a question about the overall health of the team, and Coach Riley said it was good, so very encouraging signs early in camp. My biggest takeaway today, Chris, was about Jacoby Lane. I asked some players who made the best play at camp today, and a couple guys, Mason Cobb and Kalen Bullock, both mentioned that Jacoby Lane, freshman wide receiver, had the play of practice with a tremendous catch, and you have some thoughts on Lane as well.
Yeah, but I mean, before we even started instant analysis, I said I wanted to talk about Jacoby Lane. You said, well, coincidentally enough, Jacoby Lane had the best play of camp, and I'm going to go on a prediction right now that is not the first time we're going to talk about Jacoby Lane and making an amazing catch, because that was what he was known for in high school, with that 6'4" frame, just pogo sticks for legs, and his ability to catch way up here and make these incredible acrobatic catches look so easy. So I predict more of those in the future. But yeah, Jacoby Lane was somebody I could not take my eyes off. We were watching the first part of practice, watching the on-air drills. Obviously, it may be a little bit of freshman biasy just because he's out there. You want to see the freshman, but he's 6'4", as I mentioned. He was just moving so smooth and look confident out there. You know, it's a very stacked wide receiver room, Connor, but Jacoby Lane may be the guy that has to break in there at some point, but if he keeps going the pace that he's at and he's gets the playbook down, I could see a role for him, especially in the red zone. And
he's becoming a Peristyle favorite on the website. I saw a post the other day, don't forget about Jacoby Lane. And what do you know, the next practice that we can watch, he ends up making a great play. So that was a great post. And when the room is so deep, you can kind of forget some guys. Mekhi Lemon, another freshman who looked good today. It's so deep, and I'm excited to see who earns a spot. I wrote a big story about who will have the chance to do that over on USCFootball.com. Other takeaways today from you, Chris. On the offensive line, we saw Gino Quinones repping with the ones at left guard, Emmanuel Pregnon behind him. I don't know how long that's going to last, but from what we were able to see, Gino was up there with the ones.
Yeah, a little bit surprising, but a little bit not surprising because, Emmanuel he's a transfer coming in here. He's coming from Wyoming to USC, so you would expect a little bit of an adjustment coming from that level to USC football. And Gino has played in the system before, started a couple games last year. He is reliable, but talent-wise, everyone is picking, Emmanuel to eventually move in and slot in with that first-team offensive line, playing next to Jonah Monheim at the left side, the most important side, with a Heisman winner back there taking snaps. So that is a little bit of a surprise, but eventually we expect Emmanuel to kind of eventually slide in there over in the first team.
And defensively, linebackers coach Brian Odom talked about Tackett Curtis. Mason Cobb also brought up his name with Rajon Davis out. Tackett Curtis impressed with more reps. What did you learn about the linebackers today?
Yeah, Tackett Curtis, that's a buzzword with USC fans and on the Peristyle, but everyone wants to talk about him. Odom, just talk more praise for him. But the overall thing is that, what's so good about Tackett is he thinks he's going to make every play. That's the kind of confidence that he has when he's out there on that field. And Brian Odom emphasized that he is ball over the block. So he really emphasized that he is going for the ball every time he's on the field, which is, football at its simplest for a defender. Go get the ball carry. So he really emphasized that he is a guy who's just going to attack, and go after the ball. It does not matter about the block. Wherever the ball is, he's going to find it. And when asked about, him being so young, he noted that he's going to make freshman mistakes. All freshmen make those mistakes, so it's about him getting in his playbook. But when asked about, is he making mistakes of hesitation, or aggression. Brian Owen was like, oh, aggression, 100%. There's no hesitation in attacking Curtis. So that's something you like to hear. You can correct over aggression, and you want that aggression from a linebacker. Hesitancy, you don't want to see, but it's common for a freshman. But to see that he's making mistakes of aggression, not hesitation, is a really good sign for him.
Yeah, also, Mason Cobb mentioned that Eric Gentry and him, they're gelling, they're meshing after Gentry missed all of spring with an ankle injury after having surgery, so that was encouraging as well. In the secondary, Christian Roland Wallace, we keep getting information from the coaches. He can play all 5 positions. He might not be corner, it might not be nickel, even safety potentially for Christian Roland Wallace. We heard from him, we heard from Dante Williams. Very, very deep room, the secondary room, with so many guys at both spots. How do you see him fitting in now that we've had a few practices under our belt?
They keep dancing around it. They won't say specifically, oh, he's going to play some nickel this year. Oh, he's going to play safety. They say it as, oh, he can do all these things. And I just feel like they're just setting us up for him to come out there, and play nickel or play safety at some point this season. But yeah, he is a very versatile defender. He is obviously a massive defender at cornerback, 6'2", 6'1". Looks like he's a linebacker build. So putting him in nickel kind of makes sense. I think he's fast enough to hang with those tight ends. He's obviously big enough to hang with those tight ends. I know a lot of USC fans are probably screaming at the TV like, play Christian Roland Wallace at nickel. We need more nickel help. So yeah, a versatile piece, and it just seems like they're setting him up to put him all over the field in this secondary. And playing nickel, it involves a lot more communication, so that's something they need to get down with him. But obviously he's been starting for 4 years at Arizona, so I don't think communicating is going to be a big issue for him. But just moving into a different kind of role takes some time to get used to.
Final thought for me, Corey Foreman. I asked Lincoln Riley about his performance, and he said that he's been able to stack practices, and he's looked really good 5 in a row. He's getting better, which is something that maybe in the past he wasn't potentially improving with every practice. And now he's starting to love football instead of just liking football. He wasn't at Media Day, which I thought, okay, that's interesting. There's a lot of new defensive linemen. Why isn't Corey Foreman a returner here? I thought that might signify his role a little bit, but it sounds like the coaching staff is high on him, and he'll have a real chance at the defensive line spot this year, probably defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously where he played in high school as the number 1 prospect in the country. But, Corey Foreman has just had those expectations put on him for so long, just holding the title of a number 1 overall prospect. It's a little unfair, and that's why he gets so much attention. But, Corey's just trying to find his own, get into a groove. He's had a couple coaching staffs with him, but this seems to be the one that's closest to kind of unlocking that full potential. So we hope, whatever the role may be for Corey Foreman, even if it's just a rotational kind of player, that he's able to go out there and just play freely and with some confidence now that he's back to a more natural position as opposed to the rush end.
He's Chris. I'm Connor. This was Instant Analysis after USC's 4th practice of fall camp. Stay on USCfootball.com for updates all throughout camp and during the season, of course. Chris, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Connor. And our first instant analysis together. Hopefully first of many.
First of many. I hope so, too.